I recently interviewed photojournalist Patrick Tombola about his harrowing ordeal being kidnapped in Syria. And as I'm recording this, Patrick is now in Ukraine, and just hours ago, Putin gave the order and Russia attacked Ukraine, initiating an invasion on the smaller Eastern European country which it borders. Patrick has been sending me some audio messages and some videos from his journey as he and his co-workers seek safety. Here's Patrick talking about the current situation on the ground in Ukraine.
Yeah, I'm currently in Ukraine reporting. I've been a correspondent, both photographer and videographer for the last 12 years, and this is probably my 8th or 9th conflict, and it's definitely one of the most surprising, mainly because it's just so unprecedented that a country the power and the size of Russia invades in full force another completely independent state that has been independent for the past 31 years. So it really, it's very strange, because even though we all knew about the amassing of tanks and armored vehicle and personnel along the border, we all thought he was bluffing. And now we suddenly come to realize he is definitely not bluffing. We woke up, actually my colleague, who I've been to Iraq and Africa and Egypt, so we were very well traveled, and she woke me up at about 4:30, and she heard some loud bombing sounds. They most likely came from the border or from out of sea. We're still not 100% sure. The city of Mariupol is located on the Azov Sea, so it's sort of a sea city, and it's only 30 kilometers from the border with Russia. So it's an extremely important city to obtain, and that is why we decided to leave, because essentially it could well go one or two ways. Either the Ukrainians surrender, which is very unlikely, because everyone we spoke to and everyone we've heard is just not keen to surrender. And in the last 8 years, they've received a very large amount of weapons and training from the West, so they're much more prepared than 7 or 8 years ago. And if they resist, Putin said he will not hesitate to make them feel the full might of the Russian army, which, I'm not exactly sure, but it's, time and times the Ukrainian army, both, especially when it comes to air power and sea power. So you can just imagine that a full-scale invasion with the full might of the Russian army would be an absolute bloodbath. So we decided to leave there. Most civilians have decided to bunker down. Most of them, it's quite surprising, most people do go by the daily life. You see people coming back from food shopping, and you just don't really, there were massive queues at a petrol station to get petrol, because most likely that's what's going to run out ASAP. In which case, everyone is just, dead on their tracks. And it's kind of interesting, because I've been reporting on conflict for a while, but in a way, whilst every conflict is different and has different dynamics, it's somewhat, if you go into a conflict that has been raging for a while, there is some degree of predictability. But even if you go there right at first, nothing really prepares you for a country with the military might of Russia. I don't think that we have witnessed anything like that since the Second World War, and that gives you. It gives you sort of these shots of adrenaline for a whole host of different reasons, because, you think about your personal safety, you think about what your surroundings will be, in the next, even 7 to 14 days, and all the people. But also you're thinking about essentially like a potential European war. I mean, it's who knows at this point? Who can predict what Putin, is able to do? And so that's extremely scary. My plans are to go to this city called Dnipro, and it's much more central. It's a bit further out than Donbass, which is the most. It's a Russian-speaking area, and it's the one that's been most hotly contested by Russia, and it's 100% going to be invaded. I mean, reports are that the whole country is going to be invaded. Putin said that he wants essentially a regime change in Kiev as well. So I will plan to stay here and report. And I'm not really sure why Russia has chose to attack now. I think that they felt they had to call their bluff. I mean, they've been pressuring the West to make concessions in terms of not allowing Ukraine to join NATO for the past 8 years, and they felt, and my feeling is Putin basically just said, well, look, I mean, you want to play the strong-headed, look at what I can do. And in a way, it has obtained quite a number of things at once. It has shown how sort of unstable and precarious the balance of power is within modern democracies in the West. He is in power for years and years to come, so he can take executive decision with such a speed that democracies just cannot. And he has resolved some of the inner problems within Russia, so that's another point. And he now has shown to every single sort of former Soviet republic in the area that he means business, and that is a scary thing. The best case scenario is that there is a diplomatic solution where essentially Putin just installs a pro-Russian government, and there is not a massive bloodbath. Worst case scenario is that Ukrainians keep saying that they are not going to bow, and they will go out in shooting. And in that case scenario, I think a recent study has said that we could be looking at 50 to 70,000 dead within the first couple of weeks. That is a very frightening possibility, in all honesty. And there are many foreign reporters here. A lot of them have already sort of left for the West. A lot of people are trying to find, there's different kind of reporters. There's, me as a photographer, there's very little to see and to photograph at the moment. Weirdly enough, the life is going on as usual. It's like any other day, except that there's very little petrol, and except that there are, except that there are long gas queues. And for a photographer like me, it doesn't really make much sense to go around and shoot. It makes a lot more sense for a writer or for a reporter, someone that does news. I've been doing in-depth reportage and for years, so it's just not my bread and butter, this one. Having said that, my colleague Eleonora Vio and I, once we get to Dnipro and we have sort of settled there and we have our logistical situation a bit more under control, and we perhaps have a car and a fixer and a translator, we will go out and start, reporting, even getting back closer to Donbass. But at least we're not in Donbass proper.